And Brandon B., thanks for being our guest this afternoon as we're closing out the show. Listen, I was going to ask you to speak to this hypocrisy. So Obama continually says, no boots on the ground in Syria, no boots on the ground in Syria, no boots on the ground in Iraq, no boots on the ground in the Middle East. But yes, we're going to put boots on the ground by the thousands in Africa where there's an Ebola outbreak. We're going to put our troops in the middle of this deadly virus.
Yeah. Well, first let me address the no boots on the ground in Syria. That's another example of throwing truth to the ground. It's a lie.
Yeah, there's boots on the ground.
We've had boots on the ground in Syria for almost 3 years now. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not have been guys in what we picture as a troop in fatigues with a pack on and all, but we have had special forces, black ops, CIA guys in there. Listen, the whole Arab Spring,
yes,
we were behind causing much of that uproar and all of that dissension that went on. We had boots on the ground. In Egypt, we had boots on the ground. In Libya, we've had boots on the ground. In Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, of course. But my point is, we have people working for the United States government on the ground in Syria right now.
Yes, and have had for years.
Yes. Now, as far as sending troops to Africa, listen, I don't know. I talked about this Ebola thing a while back when we were flying people into this country who are infected with this disease.
Yes.
Flying
people.
It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. Now we're going to send our troops there.
Yeah.
For what reason?
And you and I were talking off air. There may be something prophetic coming together here.
There could be, because think about this, and I just shared this with somebody a couple of days ago when I first saw this news of our boys going to Africa. And not only that we're going to Africa, because we have to remember the United States is not the key central piece to end times biblical prophecy, okay?
Right. That's right.
As a matter of fact, we're minuscule in that scheme of things.
That's right. Middle East and Israel. They're the big ones.
That's right. But there are African nations that are named in the Bible that for the last 100 years or more have just been sitting over there as third world countries, forgotten about by most of the world. And within the last few weeks, and probably the last month or month and a half, they are on headline news every night.
Yep. And the Bible has prophesied for thousands of years that those nations, those African nations, would take prominence in the last days as this big war breaks out in the Middle East. And here we go.
I know. It's unbelievable. I mean, you think about the fact, like I say, that these countries have just been sitting there, forgotten by the world, desolate places that dictators and these terrible people have ruled over and oppressed these people, and just the atrocities that have gone on there for at least the last 100 years.
Right.
And now, every single night, every time you look on the internet, an African nation is headline news. And now we, the United States, still the world superpower, though that's slipping away, are sending troops there.
Yeah, boots on the ground. No to boots on the ground in Syria. Yes to boots on the ground in the middle of a viral outbreak. Yes.
And are we going to go there and fight Ebola with weapons?
I know. Listen, we've only got a couple minutes. Let's end on a funnier and more positive note, but still very, very ominously biblical. So tell us about Al Gore giving a speech and what happened to him. You got about 2.5 minutes.
Thursday of this week, Al Gore is giving a speech, as always, on climate change, which most scientists now say is not happening, has not been happening.
That's right. And you're right. Most scientists are now saying that.
Yes. He's attempting to quote the words of Jesus in Luke 17, right? Isn't that correct?
It's in Luke, I think it's 17.
Yeah, I think it's Luke 17 towards the end of that chapter, where Jesus is in fact talking about the signs of the times and getting on to the Pharisees about not being able to discern the times of the times. And he's talking about weather, that they can see different things about weather patterns, but they can't discern the days that they live in.
Right.
And while Al Gore is attempting to quote the words of Jesus to promote climate change, the mic goes dead.
Not only does the mic go dead while he's doing it, but he doesn't know it goes dead until later they tell him, and then he laughs and says, well, let me start over. But not only
talking.
But not only that, tell the people on the exact word where it went dead.
You hypocrites.
That's right. He's quoting Jesus' words, and Jesus goes through this litany of you can, discern the times you can discern the weather by looking at the clouds, and you say if the clouds are red, it's going to be fair in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. And then the next thing Jesus says is, you hypocrites, you can discern the weather, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. And when Al Gore gets to that point, he says, and then the microphone goes dead.
Yes. And, if you
gosh.
think back to Gore's time as vice president, and of course he served under Bill Clinton, and you think about the number of biblical and spiritual gaffes that those two made.
Yes.
It's amazing. Bill Clinton quoted the book of Galatians.
Yeah, the book of Galatians. He said, my favorite book in the Bible is Galatians. He didn't even know how to say the name of it. That was a gaffe.
Of course he did. He doesn't even know how to spell the word Bible, probably.
But